this morning?
I
feel like it was like everybody was like, yeah, it's all right. It's an okay day. Well, glad to be here this wonderful Sunday morning. Hey, happy Mother's Day to all the moms. It's a great day to celebrate, of course, the moms and all the great things that they do. So, hey, we're going to do a thing where we hand out a gift to the moms in the room. So if you're a mom, stand on up and let us celebrate you. Joy's outside. She'll make sure that she gets one as well. But thank you. I mean, very personally, thank you for being a great and wonderful mom. Good stuff. So last week we started a new adventure in the Bible. We started in the book of Ezra. And so last week we talked about how the Israelites were coming back to Jerusalem from their captivity in Babylon to rebuild the temple. We talked about the anticipation that came from that as Cyrus made that announcement that they were able to come back. And this week we're going to be in Ezra chapter 2. And sometimes, there are these wonderful coincidences where things just line up really well, like even in a holiday like this where we're celebrating Mother's Day, and you get a chapter in the Bible, and just magically the schedule lines up, and you're like, wow, there's some really great things to be able to talk about moms in here, and some really good stuff to be able to just preach about in general. And this week was not that week. there was not a good aligning of Mother's Day. If you read the book, or if you read the chapter ahead of time, Ezra chapter 2, it's 90% a list of names of the individuals who came back from captivity in Babylon to Jerusalem and to Judah. And on top of that, that list of names is entirely men. It's the heads of families, so it makes it even harder to make a stretch towards the Mother's Day connection. But you know what? We're still going to do it. We're still going to make it happen. Just wait. We're going to just wait. You're going to see how this happens in amazing ways. But just for context's sake, just to remember, so the Israelites had been in captivity for approximately 70 years, and they were coming back now. King Cyrus, the Persians, had decided that they could go home. And so this was a hugely momentous occasion for all of the Israelites. This was something that had been prophesied. This was something that people had been looking forward to. This is a big deal. And they got to go home to rebuild the temple. So this is an exciting time. And so what I want to do is we're gonna skip over the list of names this morning, but I want to kind of fast forward to the end of this chapter to take a look at what these people did when they came back to Judah, when they came back to Jerusalem, and as they got ready to rebuild the temple. So everything from Ezra 2 is going to come from this one verse, and then we'll go from there. So it's in Ezra chapter 2, verse 68. It says, when they arrived at the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, some of the heads of the families gave freewill offerings toward the rebuilding of the house of God on its site. So I want to kind of paint this picture here. Remember that Israelites, they were in captivity. The announcement was made. They came back to Judah. And it was a difficult transition, a difficult journey. There was a lot of moving pieces associated with trying to get this huge group of people from wherever they were in Babylon now into Jerusalem, back into their hometown. It was not this like, oh, hop and a skip easy thing. Keep in mind too, that they were in captivity for 70 years. So many of these individuals would have been people that were born in captivity. I would say most of the people were people that were born in captivity. And actually, if you look through the historical record, the Israelites were actually doing quite well in captivity. They were flourishing, they were prospering, they were becoming wealthy, and they left, many of them, all of that. They left the comfort, they left many of their properties and possessions, and they went. And they came back to Judah, and they came back to the side of God, the side of the temple. And what did they want to do? They wanted to give a free will offering to get the work started, to build the temple of God. And you think about that, they had just left so much, many of them, and their comforts and their stuff and their money and their possessions, came back and they wanted, first thing, to give to God. This was not a coercive, you must thing. This was not part of their required tithing. This was not a commanded giving of any sort. This was a giving because they just wanted to give. They just were excited about the future that God had gifted to them, and they were excited to give back. You know, when I think about Christianity today, I think it becomes very easy, and it's often viewed as this big religion of rules that we must follow. And as long as we do enough rule following, we're good. As long as we do enough of those, following those requirements and commands, etc., we've done well, and that's good. And it becomes very easy, because of that thought process, I think it becomes very easy for us as Christians to adopt this mindset of just doing enough to get by in our relationship with God. You ever felt that way? That you're just doing like the bare minimum to just kind of get by in your relationship with God? I know I feel that way often, where I'm not really going after it, but I'm doing technically what's required of me. And to be fair, here's the thing, right? The reason why the phrase good enough is a real phrase is because good enough is in fact good enough, right? There are many times and circumstances and areas of our relationship with God where meeting the requirement is good. It's not something to be like, oh, that's trash, or that's not good enough, or whatever. It is, because that's actually what that's why the requirement's in place, right? So I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty here about not doing enough for God, but there are areas, I would argue, that there's plenty of room. Plenty of room for us to go above and beyond the requirement, above and beyond the rule, and give freely to God. We could do it in our relationship, our personal relationship with God, the way that we connect with Him. We do it in the way that we evangelize, the way that we help build other relationships with other Christians, with people outside of the church as well. There's plenty of opportunity for us to go above and beyond and to give freely in our service to God and our service to others. And I think the Bible talks a lot about this notion. And one of the scriptures here that really got me thinking about this is in Luke chapter 6, verse 38. And kind of, I think, illustrates a lot of the heart here. It says, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." And so, yeah, there's a requirement in our faith for certain things. But also there's scriptures like this that says when you give, and even when you set a new standard for yourself to give more, to be giving freely in that way, it gets given back to us. And not necessarily in ways that we'll understand right away, or that we'll see it, right? Oh, I'm going to give $1 to God, and God's going to give $1 back. Not quite like that exactly, but in amazing ways, in awesome ways, God gives to us as we give to Him. Even, again, above and beyond the rule or standard or requirement. And so my question for you, and what I want us to be thinking about this morning is, in what areas of your faith do you give freely in your relationship with God? Where are those areas where you are just excited to go above and beyond the requirement, the standard of giving in whatever way that you're thinking? And on the other side of the coin, in what areas might you need to consider giving more? Because you are just maybe doing it without that heart. Maybe you're not going after it in a way that God wants. Or maybe you know that you just have more in you, right? Even if you're doing good. But maybe you know that you have more in you, and you just for some reason decided not to extend yourself that way. And if you're looking for a very practical example of what it looks like to go above and beyond in this way, guess who you look to? Jesus. Moms. That's a good answer. That's a good answer, for sure. But today, moms, right? Because moms are amazing. examples of what it looks like to go beyond the requirement. Just the other day, so I'm going to use Natalie as an example, she's a great mom, and to go, just thinking about this idea of going beyond. So the other day, we're feeding Oliver and we're at the dinner table, and Oliver is learning to share, and we want to encourage him to share, but when we're eating, what that comes in the form of is Oliver will eat something, kind of mow it in his mouth a little bit, and then he'll decide that he wants to share, and so he'll take it out of his mouth, and he'll look at Mom, and he'll offer it to her in this wonderful, just gesture of love. And so what does Natalie do? She takes it and she eats it, right? Because she loves Oliver, she wants to encourage him to share, right? So here's the thing, right? Feeding your child, required. Right? Feeding your child, required. Eating the soggy, saliva-filled, mushy piece of food or piece of broccoli or whatever that Oliver just ate, not required, right? But she does it because of love, because she's motivated because here's the thing, because Oliver, when Natalie does eat that piece of gooey food, is so excited. He laughs, he's just so happy that, oh my gosh, I've done something and Mom likes it. And so that's what motivates her in so many ways. And you talk to any mom, and you hear lots of stories like this, whether they're gross or goofy or whatever, but moms consistently go above and beyond, right? Consistently go beyond their requirement. And at times, of course, you talk to them in certain moments, and they're not going to tell you that this was fun or exciting, or this was like, oh, I so wanted to go above and beyond here. But overall, in the big picture, you ask moms, was it worth it to do those things? And what do they say? Absolutely. Absolutely. Why? Because of love. Because this heart of free will offering that moms exemplify for us, this example of giving freely and giving more than the requirement, this is the heart of God. This is the heart of God exemplified day in, day out in these people that take care of us, these people that love us and show us the way. And by the way, it's not just physical moms, it's mother figures, it's people that have helped us in many ways. There's a lot of different ways. It's a broad definition. And so moms do these things. Mothers go after these things. And God notices. God takes note of these things. And there's a scripture here in Hebrews chapter 6 that talks about that. Hebrews 6 verse 10 says, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. And I want you to take note of this here. It says, he will not forget the work and the love that you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. And so again, when we do this, when we give freely, especially in our relationships with others, as we're trying to glorify God and we're trying to build something great, as we give freely to others, as we give freely to God, it is giving to God. Even when it's giving to others, even when it's helping some other individual, it's still giving to him. God remembers when we give freely. Where do you give freely? So my encouragement this morning, course number one, celebrate the moms. Celebrate the mother figures in your life. And two, strive to follow their example. Strive to follow that example of giving freely, of going above and beyond the requirement or the command. Because again, that is the heart of God, to give more than is required. And so as you do that, and as you pursue that, I think you're going to see your relationship with God continue to flourish and grow, and you'll be able to do really awesome things for him. Amen? Amen.